Jason, welcome to Tales of Leadership, brother. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well. It's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So honor and a privilege, first of all, for you being on the show. And I think just starting off with, could you provide a quick overview to our listeners of who you are?
Sure. Who is Jason Van Kim? Already in the third person, man. So uh, I am a guy who grew up in the Washington D.C. area. Very very patriotic. Loved my country. Loved playing sports. I loved um, my church and attended the United States Military Academy at West Point, played football there, went on a mission for my church to St. Petersburg, Russia, in that area for 2 years. Commissioned as officer in the military, became a Ranger, Green Beret, served 3 times deployments in the Middle East, served a year in Korea, spent a few months in Africa doing missions. About 15 years in, I came down with a seizure disorder, so they medically retired me. And then I got into entrepreneurship. So I started a leadership development firm called Mission 60. And then based on the success of that company, I started a nonprofit called Warrior Rising. And it's fantastic. We help veterans and their immediate family members find their purpose again through business ownership. And it's going really well. I'm married. I've been married for almost 8 years. I live in Utah right now. I've got a daughter, Claire Jane. She'll turn 6 tomorrow. And I've got a son named Jack, and he's 3 years old. That's me. That's me, my man.
So you live right now outside of Salt Lake City, Utah?
That's right. Not too far.
Yeah. I have so I'm a assistant product manager for a small drone for the Army, and one of the vendors out there is called Till. And I was out there probably in November. That area is freaking stunning. It's beautiful.
It is. The people that are from Utah, they just don't appreciate it. They want to get out of here as fast as they can. If you're not from Utah and you move here, like every morning, I'm just in awe, I'm shocked, just looking at the mountains, man.
Yeah.
It's like incredible. It's incredible. It's cold, and I love the cold. In the fall and winter, it's very gloomy. It's very dark. It's very cloudy. I love that. That's my thing. This year, we've had more snow than any other year that I've been here. It's insane. It's snowing right now, as a matter of fact.
No, I can't beat that. In Alabama, it never snows.
And 45 minutes to the slopes, and there's like 9 different slopes you can choose from.
That's amazing, man. So kind of starting off with, because you and I have a similar path, but we diverged through our careers. Because I'm still an infantry officer. I chose a different route, not doing try to go to SF, but stay kind of conventional side. But hearing the journey that you've went on, I would love to know, what is your definition of leadership, and then how has it changed throughout the course of your journey?
Yeah, I look at it like this. When I first became an officer, you don't really know how much, or at least you appreciate how much you really need to learn. You know, it's not like you think you have it all figured out or you know everything, but you feel like you have a pretty good foundation and a base, and that's true to an extent. But there's a lot to learn. And when I was young, you have that feeling, intense testosterone, and you're invincible, and there's no way you can fail at anything, and all that. And I wasn't married, I didn't have children, and so for me, my focus was on stories, getting as many stories as I possibly can, putting myself voluntarily, uncomfortably in positions where I could get a story out of it. And it would be a hilarious story for my friends to hear, or a story for me to remember, to help me move forward in difficult times and so forth. So I was a story collector for sure. I wasn't a badge collector. I know a lot of guys are badge collectors. I was a story collector. And as I continued on my journey, I realized that it wasn't about the collecting the stories. It was about the people that you take with you in these stories, on these journeys. It's about the faces, the smiling faces of the people that are next to you when you're hoisting that trophy, that championship trophy. It's not about putting that piece of metal on your in your office or hanging it on your wall. Like, it doesn't matter. What matters is, the people that you took that journey with. Life isn't about trophies. It's about people. It's about the journey that you take with those people. And that's what I learned. And for me, learning about leadership and becoming a better leader as I've gotten older and through time and through experience and so forth, you see how selfish people really are. And that's not a bad thing, because you can be selfish about being selfless. And that's what I try to be, selfless. But I know that there's a lot of internal motivation for me to be selfless. It makes me feel good to be selfless. It makes me, um, define my values and my personality and my identity, who I am as a person. This is the type of person I am, and I find great happiness from that. And so, as I'm saying this, I realize that if I can help other people accomplish their goals, if I can inspire them to be better, that's what being a leader is all about. It's about inspiring people to be the best version of themselves, whether they know it or not. And to me, that's leadership.
That's a beautiful definition, Jason. And you said something I think that's really key: being selfless, not selfish. And I think I heard you say this before on a previous podcast, but it really resonated. Is what we achieve success going alone, but if we want significance in life, we do it as a team. So we can achieve success individually, but it's momentarily. But if we want success and or significance in our life, we have to do it as a team, and because we have that deeper sense of fulfillment when we accomplish something as a unit or as a formation or as an organization. It means something more to us when we do it as a team versus doing it alone. And I feel the civilian world just doesn't understand that fact. It's lost on them.
Yeah, by and large. And I think we're hardwired to be that
Yeah.
way, to be a member of a tribe, of a pack, of a team. And some of us forget that, or some of us let our egos get in the way of that. And then we want to
Mm,
prove to ourselves we can do it alone. And there are times when you need to do that. But if you want to go lead a life of significance, you need
yeah.
to do it with a team, with people around you. Now, the civilian world, I think what it all comes down to is um, trust. You know what I mean? By and large,
Yeah.
government or businesses, corporations, so forth, they have a hard time understanding, interpreting, and displaying trust. What does it mean? In the military, we have that shared hardship, where we've bonded together. We have a relationship built on trust. And as we go further and further in the military, we go through harder and harder courses. We go to combat. We do all these things together. Trust has to happen for us to be
Yeah.
successful. In the corporate world, you go home at night and you have your personal life, and you can check out and you compartmentalize whatever's happening at work to the point where you don't really recognize or need trust at some point. And that's when it all starts to fall apart, when you start thinking like that.
Trust is one of the hardest things to adapt. And where I'm in acquisitions now, I work with a lot of civilians, especially like in like the DoD realm, civilians. What advice would you give to someone that is trying to build a team, but to establish trust? Because I think that's the glue. It's all about leadership in my eyes. It's about relationships, but you can't develop relationships until you develop that trust. In the military, it's easy because we go through those crucible events. Some of the soldiers that I led in combat when we were in Afghanistan, I meet them again and we're instantly connected. Like,
Oh
because we
yeah,
had that shared hardship. It's just instantaneous, but it's hard to build that in the civilian realm or every day. So what advice would you give to do that?
I would say a couple of things. One, it don't make it harder on yourself than it needs to be. In
Mm,
the military, you're given your team. We don't get to choose our teams. You know what I mean? In the civilian world, you get to choose your team. And as a business owner now, as a veteran who's running several companies, right? When I first started, I was looking to put butts in seats.
mm,
Anybody could fill this role, just like in the military. Hey, you fill this role. And what I realized pretty quickly is, man, it's not the same quality of person. You know, the people are trying to do as little as possible
yeah.
and to get paid as much as possible. And I tried my best to inspire them to motivate themselves and do everything possible I could think of. And what I realized was, you know what, Jason, you don't have to have this person. You know what I mean? Take the
Mm,
time to find the right person in the beginning. It's not about putting butts in seats, it's about putting the right butts in the right seats. So take your time to find the right person to hire, to bring to your team. And when I say that, I mean, define who you are. This is
Yeah.
who I am. These are my values. This is what I believe in. This is our vision. This is how we're going to get there. And I want somebody on my team that believes in those same things, who shares the same or similar values that I do, who has the same vision as we do now as a team, who I know how to inspire and is self motivated and wants to accomplish certain things. If you can get everybody on the same team aligned, you're going to go far. There's no doubt. And if you get them aligned at the very beginning, you're going to eliminate a lot of wasted time that you don't need.
That is brilliant, Jason. So you have to determine what the cultural fit is going to be for the organization. What core values do you want? What are the strengths or the key attributes or KSAs that you want within the organization that need to be filled? And then hire someone based on those strengths and abilities, because then you can train them to be successful in the job. But you can't train mindset, you can't train hard work, and you can't train commitment, but you can train skills. And hearing you talk, and it reminded me of something through I think James Clear, Atomic Habits, is that when you first started, you were focused on the outcome first. I need to get
Mm.
butts and seats, but you had that reflection of, all right, now who am I, and who do I need to hire to produce and then ultimately succeed? So then you grew inside out. I love that advice, man. That's amazing.
Hey, it was learned through experience, through making mistakes, you know,
Yeah.
and it could take you days to interview the right person and spend
Yeah.
time with that person to see if you guys have chemistry, to really get to know that person before you bring them on. And for me, I always ask new employees to prove themselves. Show me what you got. You know,
Yeah.
oh, you're a fundraiser? Okay, raise some funds. Show me you can do it. And if they start backtracking, to me, that's a huge red flag. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Because you'll see so many people just with embellished resumes. Oh, I'm an
Yeah.
expert in Excel. Oh, well, are you really? Show me that you are. You know what I mean? Or things like that.
So there's an old battalion commander. He worked for essentially a Delta operator, right? But he came to be a battalion commander because they allowed those guys to do that, so they continue to build their career. And we were doing a live fire out at Fort Polk, which in itself is just miserable. I'm sure you've been to Fort Polk a couple of times. I
I've
spent
never
4
been to
years in
Fort
that
Polk.
place.
I've never been.
Really?
They almost sent me there, and and I was able to turn that around to Fort Campbell. So I'm
Oh,
all
you're a
right.
lucky man. Yeah, 4 years there. But the I'm never going to forget, we had a really rough night iteration with one of the platoons, and it was probably one of the better platoons that I had in my company. And after that iteration, everyone was deflated. It was cold, it was raining, it was 27 degrees, right on the border of rain. Somehow it was like a sleet.
Mm.
And platoon looked at me, and I was like, all right, let's reflect on this, and we'll attack it tomorrow morning. That battalion commander pulled me aside, and he looked at me. He's like, Josh, deeds, not words. And and then my first sergeant overheard that, just got all fired up. He's like, all right, I am not going to use the colorful language he used. All right, we're resetting. We're going to do it again. You're going to get it right, and you're going to get it right, and then you can deserve to go to bed. And that really kind of changed my mindset, is that you can't rely on words alone as a leader. You have to do deeds aligned with words, and that was powerful. So so start me on your leadership journey. Where did that start for you? Because you have such a rich history. Was that when you started as a cadet? But where did you see your leadership journey starting?
Oh man, you gotta go far back. And I'll tell you this: um, when you start to have kids, you start to see that
Mm,
they are just born with personalities. They're
yeah,
born with certain tendencies, and and certain things. Um, like I said earlier, I have a daughter and a son, and my daughter, we call her Officer Claire. She's like a police officer, man. She's like, calls you out in every little infraction. It's hilarious. I'm not necessarily like that, but she was born with leadership abilities, and we have to kind of teach her and cultivate that and educate her so that she could have, really good leadership qualities as she grows up. And so I feel like I was born with leadership abilities. Growing
mm,
up, I always wanted to get people on a team. Like I remember in kindergarten, like, hey, who wants to join my club? And this is what we're gonna do, guys. We're gonna go. play football today, or we're going to go on this treasure hunt, or we're going to go whatever, just as a little kid. So always wanted to be, a leader, and I wanted to have a team around me. And then you go start playing sports as a kid as well. And you play sports, and what you realize, one of the greatest lessons my dad taught me, I remember I was like in first grade, and we were doing conditioning for the first time.
Mm.
And my dad always wanted to make him proud, and I was always a little fearful of him, and for whatever reason, just sort of that relationship that sons and fathers, and it's like when you do conditioning, you need to run as fast as you can
Yeah.
down there, touch it, and then come all the way back as fast as you can. And I want to see you the first guy back. And so I was like, okay, okay, Dad. And I remember people were sort of jogging or dogging it or whatever, just kind of running. And I was sprinting as fast as I could down to that fence and coming back as a little kid. And people saw that and noticed that. And all of a sudden, you're being recognized as somebody
Mm.
who's putting forth a lot of effort. And the next thing you know, like when you're playing in a game, people are looking at you to make a play, to score a goal, to do whatever, to hit a home run, score a touchdown. And I think that's where it started for me is, like just my dad telling me, hey, we want you and I expect you to be the best at the conditioning. And that like throughout the rest of my life, like I've always like put a high priority, high emphasis on conditioning. I've always gone all out on conditioning and always been first or in the top. Like everything we've done, every conditioning drill ever, and of every sport in my entire life, including like CrossFit stuff right now, and all that. And that's just my identity now. And it started when I was such a little kid,
Mm.
you know. And as you grow up, you realize, your ability to be a leader isn't dependent upon how fast you can run sprints,
Yeah.
but it has helped you, as in your journey to become better, more confident. It's basically like a stack of proof to yourself that you can do hard things, that you can step up when you're tired, when things are difficult. And so, getting into high school, you kind of start out, you're a young guy, you're small, and all of a sudden the seniors, the bigger guys, the guys that are going to college start to recognize you, and maybe they give you a compliment here or there and they give you some confidence. And then, you make plays, and people see you. It isn't about, standing up in the locker room and giving a motivational speech. It's about going out there on the field and actually
Mm.
producing and getting results, for the team. And then when you start to do that, then people start to listen to you because they want to be inspired to be like you. And then, you go to West Point and you realize, it's all negativity. Like everybody is just telling you how horrible you are at everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for some folks, they start to believe it. Like, oh, I'm a piece of crap. I'm no good at anything. And then other people think, oh, they're trying to help me become better. And I'm not focusing on all the negative stuff that they're saying about me. I'm focusing on the things that I can improve upon.
Mm.
And then they put you in positions to succeed. And the biggest thing, and I think as a leader, is just that grit, that resiliency, that resolve. I'm going to keep getting up no matter how many times I fall down.
Yeah.
Every time I fail, it's just a learning lesson. Everything is a learning lesson. And every time I learn something, I'm gaining experience and I'm becoming stronger because of it. Now I'm the strongest dude out here. Those are things that you can say about yourself, like as you continue along this path. I should shut up now because I've been talking way too long. You go ahead.
No, brother. I want you to share your story because you have such a great. And it's funny, your daughter and my daughter is identical. I have a son, 5 years old, Maddox, and he's a Sour Patch Kid. Like
Yeah.
those commercials that you see, he'll throw an egg in your face and then he'll come up to you and say, I love you, daddy. I was like, well, you just threw an egg in my face, bro. And there's my daughter, she's 9, Zoe, and she has such a natural leadership tendency. She always wins competitions. She always pushes herself naturally. Like she wanted to go take on wrestling, 9 years old.
That's
They
awesome.
just started like an all-state girls wrestling. She got 4th.
Hell
And
yeah.
so
Congrats.
she's going to be way better than me. I appreciate it. But I saw correlations with your daughter and my daughter, and it was funny. You could just see that. But I think effort, and you said that, and I wanted to and highlight that effort leads to recognition. And anyone who is a leader, you have to be a follower first or a great listener first, and you have to do your time. I don't think you can just go into a role, because that leads to toxic traits, especially nowadays. People who have never went through those experiences and put forth the effort, produced results, gained momentum, and momentum is powerful. Once you get that, people will start to come to you with problems because they see you as that natural leader. And your definition of my definition of leadership is spot on. It's to inspire. And I look at it, and I had a leader on, Ivy Marsh, and he talked about this, the standard. The standard is the bare minimum bar. If you hit the standard, congratulations. You have done the bare minimum in the organization to be successful. Anything below that is not acceptable. And as a leader, we have to be above the bar. We have to push ourselves. Maybe we're not the best. And I remember, when I was going against my scouts doing like PRT deadlifts and stuff like that, some of those bubbas were deadlifting 700 pounds. But I was trying my best, and I would never outperform their top, but I was always in the top 3 or 4. Like, hey, you're going to respect me as your guys' company commander because of the effort I put in, not the title or authority that I have, but who I am. And dude, that's so spot on. In fact, that's the second key nugget that I've gotten from you. So you join the Army, you go in, you're a high speed, low drag infantry officer. What inspired you to go SF? Because I know walking through that shoes that was something that I had when I was at JBLM. We just got back from Afghanistan. I was full of piss and vinegar at the time, right?
Yeah.
And my brigade commander was trying to talk all of us out going SF. It was like, you need to go to Ranger Regiment because that's where all the fun happens. You don't want to go SF. And I was always on the fence, and I was getting ready to go to the captain's career course, and we were having our child. I was like, you know what? I'm going to choose family over career. I'm going to go stay conventional. What made you go SF?
Well, I was single my entire military career, so I didn't have that struggle with the family and deployments and all that. Like my struggle was, dating, and all that.
I love it.
And doing all that stuff. But well, I commissioned as an artillery guy first, and the reason why is because the
king of battle.
The king of battle, man. The vast majority of Army football players at the time all went artillery, and sort of like, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. It seemed like that was the route to go. Now the infantry guys, at least the ones that I interacted with at West Point, were all like not guys that I'd want to hang out with, in my free time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like to meet weird guys that just like we're not on the same page. We didn't have the same hobbies, and I was just like, man, everyone's saying like infantry is the best and go infantry and all this stuff. Man, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
Now, when I got into the regular Army, I was like, dude, the infantry guys at West Point, who are those guys? These infantry guys in the real Army, these are the coolest guys around, man. Let's go hang out. Like, because the artillery guys get attached to the infantry units. And they loved me, man. I was a Ranger tabbed, artillery officer. And we got along great, man. They just loved me. And I was like, this is probably the route I should have gone is the infantry route, But I loved Ranger School. I loved every second of it. As much as I hated West Point, I loved Ranger School, man. It was I was lucky. I went True Blue all the way through, and had a great time. And I went through with some buddies, and so it made it funny at times when you see your buddies sucking wind, or you just laugh, and then they see you sucking wind, and it's just like you're just creating memories through that shared hardship, like we talked about. We went on a deployment, the initial invasion of Iraq, and we saw these SF guys out there just doing whatever they wanted, just growing beards, like wearing civilian clothes, like, half dressed in uniform, half not, like they were given all this money to do the infrastructure and all this stuff. And it's just like, everybody is like, they look at these guys like, man, that's what I want to do. And then you remember, like, I remember a time when some staff sergeant, Green Beret, had his hands in his pockets, with his weapon slung in front of him, and some sergeant major conventional unit, one of our guys, he was like, hey, get your hands out of your pockets. And he just kind of slowly looked over at him and did nothing. It was just like, dude, that's amazing. You know what I mean? Like that guy is so cool. You're thinking to yourself. And so my buddy, Jesse, he was like, Jay, we got to go SF. And I was like, man, that's a hard road, man. That's tough. Like, are you kidding me? That's like 2 years, 2.5 years of training, and these guys are like they're badasses, you know. And you start to question, like, can I do it? You know, am I capable? And then, your buddies convince you, and he's like, dude, we'll do it together, man. We went to Ranger school. It'll
Yeah.
be awesome, man. Me and you running and gunning this whole thing. And so I'm like, all right, man, I'll do it. And I submitted my packet, and I got selected, and he did not. You know,
Mm.
and so I find myself committed and going out there. I'm like on this bus to Camp McCall at Fort Bragg, and I'm just like, well, what did I get myself into? Like, what am I doing? But I know I'm not a quitter, so I'm like, I committed to do this. I'm going to see it through to the end, and it was an awesome time, man. 6 phases at Special Forces Selection and Qualification course. I loved every second of it. I did really well. Had a blast. Great people, great instructors. Everything was awesome, and I'm glad I did it. And one thing that kind of set it apart for me was the fact that I spoke fluent Russian. So I served a
Oh,
2-year mission
wow.
to Russia, and that was like a 3-3 guy in the DLPT. And I thought a big part of being a Green Beret is speaking a foreign language, and that was my language, and I was already proficient, fluent in Russian. And
Mm.
so that was a big catalyst for me for going SF.
So you and I have a different mindset on Ranger School. I loved it up until Florida, and then I recycled, and then I hated
Uh,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but that was like one of the first failures of my life that tested me because I was having a blast up to that point. Jared Dudley, all my good friends, we were going through it together, and it was enjoyable. And then they all take that bus ride away from Eglin Air Force Base. I'm just sitting there with all their care packages, eating their Kit Kats and Nutella, and
Oh,
just
dude, I'm sure you gained like 20 pounds.
dude, I gained like 20 pounds. It was
Yeah,
insane. And then the next group came in after us, and they were like, "What happened to you?" It was like I was, 20 pounds heavier. I was like, "I got all our SOPs, guys. That's going to make you successful in Florida."
yeah, 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 yeah. My buddy
Um,
was the same way. Same guy I'm talking about. He recycled Florida, and he was the best leader among us. He was the
yeah,
best of us. And for whatever reason, he recycled, and he got so fat at Florida phase, man.
yeah,
Like triple chin fat. I was
yeah,
like, what did you do, buddy?
yeah.
Hilarious.
Well, the
Yeah.
good I'll never forget, man, because I married my wife before Ranger School, and it was like a 2 days, and I went straight into Ranger School, which was
Oh my
horrible
gosh,
timing.
why did you do that to yourself?
It
You're
was horrible
insane.
timing. And my wife thought that I was gonna, graduate straight through, and I'm at Florida phase, and I'm calling her like, "Hey, babe, I'm gonna be here probably for another 30 days or so." And she's like crying. I was like, "Well, this marriage is starting off exceptionally
Yeah.
well."
Yep. Yep. Oh man, you understand deliberate discomfort, brother.
Yeah.
It's
That's
your
funny
choice.
because when she looked at me after I graduated Ranger School, was like, "I thought you were supposed to lose weight." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah. Well, I did until I recycled, then I gained about 20 pounds." But kinda kicking it back over to you, when did you discover your spark? When
Ooh,
when you wanted to pursue something deeper?
man, what a great question. When did I find my spark? What burns inside of you? Where does your fuel come from? Why do you do
Yeah.
what you do? What gets you through these dark times, these hard times, and so forth. Um, you know, leaving the military, two things hit you. One is purpose. You have a
Mm,
great purpose in the military, right? You know what you have to do. You're basically told where to be and what to do. And although you're not making a lot of money, you find great fulfillment. At least I did in what you were doing, you
yeah.
know. And a big part of that was service to other people. As a leader, you're serving. You're the number one servant. You're serving your team. You're
Yeah.
providing for them. You're giving them whatever they need to be successful. You're inspiring them, that sort of thing. So when you leave the military, there's a moment when I was, and many of us are like, now what? Like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And then you realize I'm feeling kind of hollow. I'm feeling kind of empty. Why? What's going on? And for me, I realized it was that service part
Mm,
that was empty. I needed to find that service again. And so Warrior Rising is really where I found that spark again. So that's my nonprofit, my 501c3, giving a chance to help other people be the best versions of themselves, you
Mm,
know. And it's not so much the testimonials or the people thanking me for all that, and all that's great and it's recognized and it's appreciated. But honestly, I kind of deflect a lot of that stuff.
yeah.
Oh, thanks. You're welcome. It's mainly um, to help me find that purpose again in serving others. It's like, give me a shovel and I'll just start digging a hole. I don't need you to help me dig the hole. I just want to dig the hole by myself. I want to feel that hard work, and the straining your muscles, and all
Yeah.
that. I want to feel again. I want to feel something. And that spark, that feeling I get through continued service, and I find that when you do that, good things start to happen to you.
Yeah.
Like you start to feel better, you start to look better, you start to act better. And then, the universe or your spirituality, religion, whatever you want to call it, like things just start to happen for you. You know what I mean? It's kind of odd how that works out, but you sort of blast out a frequency and it's recognized and it's reciprocated, even though you're not, like, I'm doing this for money. You're not. I'm doing this to be a good dude. I'm doing this to help people, and then that is returned to you. You know.
I love that, man. And I truly believe, it's not complicated why there's such a high level of suicide and depression in the ranks of the military when they transition out. And I think you just hit the nail on the head. It's a loss of fulfillment. They lose that sense of purpose and passion. Every single morning when we wear a uniform, at least for me, your day is basically planned out for you. You spend your day with a group of highly motivated, 95% of them, highly motivated group of individuals who just make the day enjoyable. And the most important thing, make those unimaginable environments enjoyable, which I never thought would be possible. Some of the best memories that I had were, in Ranger school with pudding mud, like seriously, like pudding mud up to my chest, having a blast with some of my
No,
guys, and in my
totally.
platoon being in Afghanistan and being in right after firefight, just having, jokes about some of the stuff that happened and turning those uncomfortable situations to humor. But when you get out, you lose that connection, you lose that camaraderie, you lose that sense of purpose in your life that you had, and how you discovered it. And then you took action. I think that makes veterans successful versus stagnant is that you knew what your passion was and your purpose, and you created alignment. And there's a concept, it's called the rule of magnetism. I think John Maxwell created it. But what we do in our lives, if we can create alignment between a passion and purpose, and we have a perspective or where we want to go, things will just naturally gravitate towards us because of the energy that we're pushing off. If we're a great leader and we're leading from, a place of gratitude and understanding and humility, then people will seek us out and want to work with us. And I guarantee you, it's so much easier now to hire the right people because they pursue you versus where you initially started having put butts in seats and just finding people to fill those slots.
Yeah, you said it. You said that magnetism. Yeah, I've read a few John C. Maxwell books and just I love his stuff. It's great, short
Yeah.
reads, powerful, spiritually focused, good stuff.
Yeah. So right after you transition out of the military, what was probably the one lesson that you took from that when you into the entrepreneur field?
Many lessons, right? So many lessons. Um, I'll say a couple things. When I medically retired, I wasn't thinking about this, but I think this was a good move for me.
Hmm.
Took some time off, right? I took some time off to just reset. I didn't jump right into something else, because I think when you do that, you sort of get lost in the transition. And it does, I'm not saying that you sit in your basement and play video games for 6 months or you have to go travel the world or whatever, like whatever suits you,
Yeah.
you know? For me, there were some things that I've always wanted to do that I started to do again. One, I really started hitting the gym again, hard.
Mm.
All right. Two, I wanted to learn how to be like um, an archer, like bow, bow hunting, things like that. And I started going to this range and doing classes and things like that, which I enjoyed. I wanted to get into fighting again. And so I started to do this Krav Maga class like a few times a week, you know. So I did those things to sort of help me transition out. And then I also started focusing on, I was recently married, on making my wife happy. Like, what does she want? You know,
Mm.
what are you, what's your vision for your life? What are your goals? What are your dreams? Like, let me help you accomplish that. And as I started to do that with my wife, I started focusing more and more on her. And I realized she didn't want me to focus as much on her. She wanted to do it on her own.
Mm.
And so I kind of took a step back and sort of helped out when she asked me for it, even though I kind of wanted to speed things along.
Yeah.
You can't kind of force it. You kind of have to let whoever you're helping run at their own pace, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And um, so we did that for a little bit. And I took some time to reconnect with friends, with former soldiers, with peers of mine, and then just kind of find out what they're doing and ask questions like, "Oh, you're doing this. You're an investment banker. You're with Goldman Sachs. You're with Bank of America. Oh, you're running this government contracting company. Oh, you're doing some stuff with the Guatemalan government. Okay." And just asking questions like, "What are you doing? How are you doing these things?" Because maybe I'd be interested in that as well.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I transitioned out. And I didn't intentionally plan on taking time off to do that. I sort of lucked into that, and I think that was a good move on my part.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think one of the things that we struggle in life today, and having kind of a maneuver background, is taking a tactical pause. So
Yeah,
sometimes when I was in an engagement, right, like taking a tactical pause to truly understand the situation, because maybe life's setting an ambush up for you, right, and you just don't know that. You have to be able to take a tactical pause and think through it and then pursue with purpose. Like once you see the clear plan, have that, Hernan Cortez moment, burn the bridges, burning desire to move out and be unreasonable. Like I'm going to win. Doesn't matter what life throws at me, because I'm going to have the right people around me with the right mindset, and I have a perspective of where I want to take my life. Yeah.
exactly. Tactical pause. Don't rush to failure because there are opportunities out there that you might be missing if you're doing that. And do that SEALs, man. Stop, look, listen, smell.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, man. So walk me through kind of where you are right now, the total warrior model and the 6 domains of Mission 6 leadership to become a better leader.
Hell yeah. So starting a leadership development firm isn't particularly unique or innovative. At the time, there weren't a whole lot of people doing that. It seems like there's a lot of people doing it now, but at the time, there wasn't a whole lot of people doing it, especially any Green Berets doing it. Um, and I was lucky because I had a lot of friends that wanted to join me. Um, Other Green Berets, some Navy SEALs, some Rangers, Marines, Medal of Honor guys that wanted to join this company that I was building. And I didn't know really much about business, right? I was
Mm.
getting my MBA at the time. And I knew I wanted to somehow work with professional sports teams. And so I Googled a list of NFL teams and found some phone numbers. And I just started cold calling people, man, and alphabetically. So, Arizona Cardinals, Atlanta Falcons, Buffalo Bills, Carolina Panthers. I get all the way down to the New York Jets. And each call, I learned something. I'm getting better, who I need to talk to, what I need to say. And the Jets gave me an opportunity to go up to Florham Park, New Jersey, and pitch to them. We went up there with a few guys. They told me before we even started, like, listen, we're just doing this as a favor. You're not going to get a contract with us. Um, and we got a contract with them,
Oh,
right after
wow.
the pitch. So we got a season-long contract with the Jets, and that was sort of the catalyst for our success in Mission 60. Was just doing that. But after we won the contract, then we kind of looked at each other and we're like, well, we better actually build this company because we don't have a curriculum. We don't
Mm.
have anything. And so we started to do that. And I also started writing for Inc. magazine at the time, and short articles. And one of the articles that they wanted me to write was about getting comfortable being uncomfortable.
Mm,
And that article got more views and interest than anything else I wrote. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like a million more. And I was like, man, people
wow.
are really interested in this subject. And then I said, all right, well, let's build our entire curriculum at Mission 60 after getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And one of my professors, getting my MBA, he told me, I've never heard of a company like this ever succeeding unless you have material, unless you have a book. Like you have to
Mm,
do that, Jason. You have to do that. And as a Green Beret, my initial gut reaction is, no way. I'm not going to put myself out there. I'm not going to market myself. I'm not going to talk about myself. I'm a quiet professional.
yeah.
And then I realized, hey man, you can be a quiet professional, but you can't be a silent professional, especially when you're in business. You have to market yourself,
I
or
love
nobody's
that.
going to hear about you, you know? And you can market yourself in a way where you don't come across as a chest beater or arrogant or, an asshole or anything like that. You can come across as somebody who's confident, who knows what you're talking about, and who can actually provide value and help you out in some way, some capacity.
Mm,
And so I wrote Deliver Discomfort, and took me a long time to come up with the title, but I'm pretty happy and proud of the title. The subtitle I'm not super happy with, super long. How U.S. Special Operations Forces overcome fear and dare to win by getting comfortable being uncomfortable. So there's a lot of verbiage right there. But it's about me, the whole book. It's about after I earn my Green Beret, I report to my unit for the first time. I meet my boss, my company commander. He's like, Jason, we're deploying in about a month. I'm going to give you command of a team, but before I do, here's how we do things in this company. And I need you to adopt this mindset if you're going to be successful here. And oh, by the way,
mm,
these are the guys in the company, they're the backbone of the company. I want you to talk to them and understand their mindset, who they are, why they do what they do, the decisions that they make. I want you to ask questions of them, and then I want you to come back and tell me what you learned. And so the whole book is me meeting specific individuals and then breaking down that meeting with a so what and a now what sort of scientific, actionable, digestible items. And then the third section of each chapter is, all right, we've been in business as a company, Mission 60 for 8 years now. I think it's 12 years now. Um, these are the clients that we've worked with where we've applied these principles, right? In the NFL and Major League Baseball and corporate clients and so forth to both their benefit and their detriment. And so that's the whole book. And I wrote it in about a year. It took me about a year to write it. I didn't rush through it, and we launched it just before COVID, like 2 weeks before COVID hit.
oh, wow.
And so it was a pretty apt title. I mean, deliberate discomfort is exactly what
Yeah.
we were doing to ourselves in the COVID world. And it was an Amazon bestseller, which isn't particularly hard to do. We wanted it to be a New York Times bestseller. It didn't get there, although we sold more copies than 7 of the 20 people that made the list the week that we competed. So I was kind of disappointed about that. But we're proud of the book. It's 4.8 stars on Amazon. It's won some awards and so forth. But after COVID hit, we had to change our business model quite a bit. No more in-person events, no more keynotes, no more workshops. And so it's like, well, what are we going to do? I said, when the book is all about getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, and we look at it through the lens of mental, physical, spiritual, social, emotional, professional. So that's the 6 domains,
Mm,
sort of the holistic approach to being a well-rounded, successful human being. And so we created a challenge, a virtual challenge. You can do it wherever you're at. 60 days, because M60, Mission 60, I said 60 days. It's intended to help you develop habits you can have moving forward. So professionally, we have a master class that we've created, 66 videos. You watch a video every day. We've got all the guys in the book, on these videos, scientists, researchers, experts, PhDs, and we got the vets, the Medal of Honor guys, and all that.
mm,
Then we have socially, we ask you to reach out to a family member, a friend, a past friend, somebody you've had a falling out with, and reconnect with that person in a meaningful way. We have a gratitude journal that you write in every single day. We have a mindfulness exercise for the spiritual component. You know, Navy SEAL Commander John McCaskill created that for us. So 10 minutes the first week, and then last week it's 40 minutes of mindfulness. Physical, we give you a workout plan. You have an hour in the gym, an hour cardio. We give you the cardio plan on Saturday. We have a third workout. It's a Valor Challenge workout to honor a fallen military veteran that we know. It's pretty short in duration, and mentally we have a book that you read to completion every week. So every week you read a book from start to finish, or you can do it in an audible or whatever. So that's the challenge. And we've had, I guess, 2,000 people go through it. A little over 2,000 people go through it over the last 3 years. 1,184 people this year so far have gone through it. I've done it 4 times. I did a beta test, and then I did it myself 3 years in a row. I love it, man. It's when I'm not doing it, I miss it. And I just finished last week, so last Thursday was day 60. So yeah, you lose a lot of weight, and that's awesome. But you do a lot of things that you've been needing to do. Like you get a whole bunch of books that just stack up on your nightstand. You're like, I got to read this book, and when am I going to find the time? Well, the time is now. You got to do it now. Like no more excuses. Or, hey, I'm going to the gym. I'm kind of going through the motions. I'm kind of half-assing it. I don't have a plan. Well, here's your plan. And by the way, it's pretty damn hard. Get after it. You're going to lose some weight. You're going to gain some muscle. Mindfulness, yeah, you've heard of it. You've tried it. You haven't really thought of it. And you don't have time for it. Well, you're going to do it. You're going to see how it changes your life every single day. Gratitude journal, go through the list, and teach his own. Sometimes people say that the physical part is the hardest part. Some people say that the social component, reaching out to people, is the hardest part. Some people say, hey, the posting, I have to post online every single day. That's the hardest part for me, putting myself out there. And teach his own. Everybody has their own hard. I say choose your hard, and that's what deliberate discomfort is all about.
Yeah, I love that. So just having a short conversation with you, there's a trend that I see. I call it the 3H with you. So you have an extremely high standard. You're extremely humble with all the things you've kind of walked through. I see you criticizing yourself, but other people looking at you probably put you on a pedestal because of all the awesomeness you have achieved. But you're also exceptionally hard. So meaning that you chase uncomfortable situations, and that's the theme throughout your entire life. I think that is the secret sauce of what makes Jason, is that when you feel comfortable, which leads to complacency and being content, we know what that does on the battlefield. You find a way to break that and to continue to grow. And when I think of like the title of your book, Deliberate Discomfort, I think of putting yourself in those positions when we begin to become complacent, and we allow contentment to set in our life to grow, because if we're not growing, we're dying. And that's something that I've seen, is like you literally begin to die if you stop growing. And I fully agree with you. And there's another thing that you said, and I love how you took this. You started your model, your business model, not even fully understanding how to implement it with all these organizations. And that's one of the key things. And I learned this planning orders, is that what separated me from some of my peers, and I was doing a joint exercise with 175 in Savannah, Georgia, and I was nested against another company commander. They would give me a mission and an operational plan, and I could just cut that down to a company level tactic in 15 minutes and decipher it out, because I knew if I had a 70% solution, that 30% would come. If I started movement and started taking action, I don't need a perfect plan. I just need a 70% solution, share it with my team to allow me to get to that 90% solution. And the last 10 is unattainable. You're never going to have a perfect plan, because it's going to change. As long as you have what you need to be successful in that time, start movement and take action. And that's one of the biggest lessons that I got from there. What would be, and by the way, the hardest thing for me would be mindfulness. My brain will not stop talking. And I have a hard time kind of just sitting down and relaxing and focusing. But to me, that's also one of the most important, because if I can get my brain to calm down through journaling, even through meditation, that's where I have some breakthroughs, some really big breakthroughs. So walk me through, what would be one tool going through your book that a leader that's listening to this podcast or will listen to this podcast, and you've already shared a lot, could start implementing immediately?
Well, yeah. First, thanks for all the compliments. I appreciate that. And you hit the nail on the head. That you understand what we're going for.
Yeah.
What's one thing that a leader can learn from the book Deliver Discomfort? So the book was sort of intended. It's intended for everybody, and it's a leadership book. There should be no surprise that this is a leadership book, not just for military folks. But I thought to myself, I've learned some amazing lessons from leaders in the military. I've learned amazing lessons most of the time from bosses, from company commanders that have believed in me, taken me under their wings, and just kind of showed me the way, right? And I thought, of all the lessons that I've learned, what are the most important, what are the most pertinent lessons? And that's what chapter 1 is all about. So my company commander, Brian Pettit, he kind of tells me, gives all officers the template for what you do when you have a young officer joining your unit for the first time, sitting in your office, hey, I'm here, I'm eager, I'm ready to learn. What do you say? What do you do? Read chapter 1 and just do that. To me, it's perfect. It's a perfect template to use moving forward for that. And one of the things that Brian Pettit tells me is the difference between being a good Green Beret and a great Green Beret is your ability to listen. And that's just a simple yet important component to being a leader. Because when you're listening, you're not talking. And when you're talking, you're not really listening. You know what I mean? When you're talking, you're just repeating what you know, but when you're listening, you're learning something new every single time. You know what I mean? So if you want to grow, you want to be better, shut your mouth and listen. And it's the same thing we talked about with the SEAL stuff. You stop, look, listen, smell, man.
Yeah.
See what's going on. Take into what's going on. That probably is the most simple, perfect lesson that I would leave you with from chapter 1.
I love that, man. So kind of, thinking long term, what current projects are you working on now? Where do you want to take this the next 5 to 10 years?
So it's another great question. And you have to be adaptable. It's adaptive execution, man. You have to see where things are leading and understand what, and then be honest with yourself. Like, what do I want? What do I want to accomplish? Where's my fire inside? You know what I mean? Where's that spark like you talked about? And so we're strongly considering partnering with some organizations and opening up the Deliberate Discomfort program for youth, for boys and girls.
Yeah, I love that.
The kids need this, and not just the kids, but fathers and mothers, boys and girls. We both have daughters, man. I don't want, and I'm sure you feel the same way. We don't want our daughters to be left out. We want to give them the same opportunities as the boys. Just like they're letting females into Ranger School. That's great as long as they can do it. Right? We're not going to give them an easier standard or an easier load. Like if you can do everything that we ask of you, not on the female scale, but everything on the scale, like you can be a graduate, you can do it, And so that's sort of the lesson that I want to impart to my daughter as well. Like you've got to earn everything in life. Nothing is given to you. You're not entitled to anything. You put in hard work, good things are going to come back to you. And so we're strongly considering going in that direction, focusing on the youth and doing a youth movement.
Dude, I think that's going to be critical. And I think that's going to be a major momentum builder because it's needed. I truly believe that it's needed, is that you can only establish a resilient mindset and grit when you're challenged. And you have to put yourself in environments to do that. Either life's going to challenge you or you find a way to do it in a more safe space, right? And unfortunately, most of us get challenged in life without a vote, without consent. So it's your choice. You can choose to be discomfort on purpose, or life will force it upon you.
That's exactly correct. I say that all the time. Like life is hard, and difficult times are coming either way. You can be
Yeah.
proactive and choose your heart, or you can let it happen to you. And that's
Absolutely.
where you're going to find people that are suffering from stress when they let
Mm.
life happen to them, when their choice, when their autonomy was taken away from them, and they had to do something in the moment that they weren't prepared for, they didn't mentally prepare themselves for. That's when people struggle hard.
Dude, it's crazy how these podcasts always fly by with me. Like I just get lost in the moment and I look up, oh man, it's almost an hour.
It's
A
almost an
great
hour. It's crazy.
conversation.
It was a lot of fun. I appreciate you having me on, man. You're a
Yeah.
great host, and hopefully the audience got something out of it.
No, they did, man. The last couple questions I want to ask you. One, the most important lessons that you've kind of learned throughout your leadership journey. If you could go back to West Point right now and talk to those officers getting ready to commission and join the Army, lead sons and daughters of this nation, which in my argument is the most valuable resource that this country has, what advice would you give them?
Uh, so a couple of things, and one that's going to surprise a lot of people, but this is what my company commander told me, and there's so much truth in this, right? When I was a second lieutenant getting ready to, when I was a young cadet getting ready to commission as a second lieutenant, I would ask everybody I could find, hey, what advice do you have for me going to lead troops the first time? And to a man like a knee-jerk reaction, everybody always said, hey, trust your NCOs.
Mm,
And that's what I did in my career, my early career, trust your NCOs. And when my company commander in Special Forces asked me, hey, what are the top 3 leadership lessons you've learned? I was like, oh, shoot, man, where do I begin? I'm like, you know, anything you do or fails to do, anything your team does or fails to do is your responsibility. We're talking about accountability. He's like, good. Officers eat last. Okay, good. Trust your NCOs. And he's like, well, how's that worked out for you? And I'm like, not that great. And he's
yeah,
like, yeah, not that great, huh? Why? Because I blindly trusted people that had a couple of chevrons and rockers on the sleeve of their uniform.
yeah,
I didn't know these people. You know what I mean? I didn't get to know them. I didn't build trust with them. I just blindly followed them at times. And my company commander's like, Jason, don't trust your NCOs. Don't do it. I want you to trust Sergeant Daniels, not because he has a sergeant in front of his name. I want you to trust Mike Daniels because you know him.
mm,
You built a relationship of trust with him. You know what he's capable of. You know, and I found that to be so true in the special forces. You find guys that you're in a trench with, so to speak. You're in a gunfight with, and you're like, man, I want this guy with me every step of the way. This guy is a rock star. You know, amazing shooter, calm under pressure. Knows what to do. This guy's a rock star. But then we deployed back to Garrison. It's the same guy who's getting a DUI on the weekend. The
yeah,
same guy who's beating his wife. And so it's like you can trust this dude in combat, but you can't trust him to do these things. And vice
mm,
versa. There are guys that were Green Berets that wanted nothing to do with a firefight. They'd freeze up, they wouldn't perform, they'd get anxiety, they'd get stressed out. And you're like, all right, you get in the Humvee, you radio higher, or we'll keep you back at the base, or we'll have you doing something else because you're a detriment to us in the position that I'm putting you in right now. However, that same guy back in Garrison, he was the same guy that I could trust completely with my sensitive items inventory or my books or
yeah,
whatever. Just a rock star when it came to that stuff. And so that's what my boss was telling me at the time. Jason, find out who they are first and then learn to trust them. Don't trust them just because of their rank. And I think that's a lesson that we need to learn in the military,
mm,
civilian life as well, because it's such a lazy response. Trust your NCOs. So it's
yep,
just pathetic and lazy. You know what I mean? Don't trust your NCOs. Learn to trust, and that goes both ways. The
yeah,
trust goes both ways. Learn to trust individuals, and then you can be a great leader.
100%. And there is literally a scientific method behind this in engineering because I have a master's degree in systems engineers. It's called the VEET model, verification, validation. Break it
Got it.
down even more, trust but verify. And
Yeah,
I
trust
have
me.
been burnt multiple times by just blindly trusting individuals that I've led. And I learned, I trust you, but I'm also going to challenge that you're
Verify.
doing the right thing. So, final show segment, same 4 questions. I call it the killer bees. Be brief, be brilliant, be present, and be gone. If you're ready, we'll jump right into them.
Yeah.
So, first question, what do you believe separates a good leader from an extraordinary leader?
A lot of these questions, it would take me some time to think through my answer, what I want. A good leader from extraordinary leader, your ability to listen is my reaction there. I think really what it comes down to is your ability to sacrifice. What are you
Mm,
willing to sacrifice? The people that I've seen succeed are the ones that are willing to sacrifice.
mm. I love that, man. So, second question, what is one resource that you could recommend to our listeners? It could be a book, podcast, mentor, doesn't matter.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm going to be self-serving in that. So I'll say read Deliver Discomfort,
I love it.
find it on Amazon. Warrior Rising. If you're a veteran or immediate family member of a veteran, you want to start a business, meaning you have an idea on the back of a napkin, you want to start a franchise business, you want to buy an existing business, or you have a business and you're stuck, come to warriorrising.org and we will help you out with education, coaching, mentoring, potential clients, potential investors, and then funding. We give away a lot of money.
Third question, if you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't go to West Point.
Yeah. I'm laughing because I commissioned through ROTC and I fully understand that.
Without hesitation, I would have gone and enjoyed my college experience and then gone to the military in a different way.
Dude, I love that. All right, final question. How can our listeners find you? And more importantly, how can they add value to your mission?
You can find me on social media. Usually I'm on the platform I'm on is LinkedIn most of the time, although I have Facebook and Instagram and so forth. So you can find me, Jason Van Camp, on LinkedIn, connect with me, follow me, that sort of thing. And warriorrising.org is my nonprofit. You can find us there. Challenge.deliverdiscomfort.com is our 60-day challenge. Mission60.com is where you can find leadership development stuff. You can go to deliverdiscomfort.com to find out more about the book, or you can go on Amazon to buy the book. And that's pretty much it.
And all of that will be in the show notes, so really easy to find. Jason, thank you so much for being intentional with me for an hour. It's been an absolute honor to talk with you.
It's been a blast. Thanks for having me. Have a good weekend.
You too, brother. Thank you.